The scent of bleach and pine cleaner clung to my skin as I dropped my keys onto the chipped kitchen counter. It was almost midnight. My back ached, my hands were raw, and all I wanted was a hot shower and 6 hours of uninterrupted sleep before doing it all over again. This was the life my family thought I never escaped from. The paycheck-to-paycheck housekeeper, always on the edge of burnout. To them, I was the failure, the one who never amounted to anything. And for years, I let them believe it. I played the role they cast me in. Quiet, invisible, struggling. What they didn't know was that every mop I pushed, every toilet I scrubbed, was part of something much bigger. Something they could never have imagined. The flickering light on my answering machine blinked. 3 new messages. I pressed play and listened as the usual voices filled the silence. "Hey, Mandy," my sister Lisa chirped, sugar-coated and fake. "Just wanted to remind you that Dad's birthday dinner is this Saturday. Don't forget. It's at 6, not 7 like last year. Try not to be late this time, okay?" Message 2. "Mand, it's Mom. We're ordering from that nice steak place for the dinner, so maybe eat before you come. I know it's probably not in your budget, sweetie." Message 3. My father's gruff voice. "Don't bring one of your weird thrift store gifts. Just show up, say happy birthday, and don't embarrass anyone." I stood there in silence, the sting of their words sharper than I wanted to admit. They thought they were being helpful, merciful even, but every word carried a judgment, a reminder of where they thought I stood in life, beneath them, barely hanging on. They didn't know about the 4 companies I silently owned, or the fact that I had made my first million 5 years ago, or that just last week Forbes had contacted me for an exclusive feature. The hidden mogul who built an empire from the shadows. I hadn't responded yet. Not because I was hesitant, but because I was finally ready. And it all started 10 years ago, at that same dinner table where Dad would later say, "Pathetic girl, still cleaning other people's houses?" 10 years ago, I was 23, fresh out of a toxic relationship, broke and desperate. I'd dropped out of college to care for my grandmother, who had practically raised me. No one else in the family stepped up. They were too busy climbing their shiny ladders, finance, law, marketing, respectable careers. When Grandma passed, I was alone. No savings, no degree, and absolutely no direction. I took the only job I could get, cleaning houses. It started as a temporary thing, a way to pay rent. But one day, I cleaned for a woman named Evelyn Kane. She was kind, old money kind, and she saw something in me no one else ever did. "You're sharp," she said one day while I organized her chaotic filing system in less than an hour. "Why waste your brain on scrubbing floors?" I told her I didn't have the luxury of dreaming big. She laughed softly and handed me a book, The Lean Startup. I read it cover to cover that night. Then I read 5 more just like it. Something changed in me. I started waking up an hour earlier to read. I listened to podcasts while I cleaned. I paid attention to how successful people lived, what they outsourced, how they organized their lives. And slowly, a thought began to form. What if I created a business that did more than clean homes? What if I reimagined home services as something high-end, streamlined, tech-driven, designed for the exact people I was working for? So I did. I saved every extra dollar I could. I slept on a mattress on the floor in a shared apartment. I ate rice and eggs for months. And after a year of working 14-hour days, I launched Clarity Living, an elite home management company that offered everything from cleaning to concierge services, staffed by vetted professionals trained in discretion, organization, and luxury standards. I didn't tell anyone. Not my parents. Not my siblings. I didn't want their doubts. I didn't need their voices in my head. I just worked. I signed my first client 6 weeks later, a tech investor in Beverly Hills. He referred me to 4 more. By year 2, I had a team of 12. Year 3, we expanded to New York. Year 5, I was clearing $10 million a year. But at family dinners, I still let Lisa brag about her advertising job. Still let Mom slip me coupons and Dad shake his head whenever I mentioned entrepreneur stuff. They thought I was weak, that I had given up. But I was building something far bigger than any of them imagined. And now, with the Forbes article set to air on live TV this Sunday, the same day as Dad's birthday dinner, the truth was about to crash down on them like a tidal wave. They wouldn't see it coming. And I wouldn't say a word until they saw my face on the screen, with the words "billionaire housekeeper turned CEO" right below it. The parking lot of the upscale Italian restaurant was already packed when I pulled in behind a sleek black Range Rover. I sat in my car for a moment, hands resting on the steering wheel, watching the valet shuffle back and forth under the soft glow of golden string lights. Technically, I didn't have to be here. I could have skipped the dinner entirely and let the Sunday morning news do the talking. But a part of me wanted to see their faces when it all unfolded. Wanted to remember every smirk and side eye so the moment of truth would land exactly the way it needed to. And besides, it was the last time they'd ever look at me like I was less. I stepped out of my car, a modest, older sedan I'd kept for appearances. No one would suspect the woman behind the wheel had a collection of luxury vehicles tucked away in a private garage across the city. I handed the keys to the valet with a nod and walked into the restaurant. "Mandy." Lisa's voice rang out like a chime dipped in fake sweetness. She stood up to greet me, arms open wide. "You're on time." "I'm shocked." I forced a smile. "Happy birthday, Dad." He barely looked up from the menu. "You look tired. Long day of cleaning?" And there it was. The jab. The line he'd been itching to throw the moment I walked in. He didn't even bother to hide the smirk. I felt the heat rise in my chest, but smiled instead. "You could say that." Mom leaned in to pat my hand. "We're just glad you could make it. We know your job keeps you busy." Busy, that's what she called overseeing 3 regional managers and negotiating contracts with luxury developers across 2 continents. But sure, busy. As the server came to take our orders, Lisa launched into another one of her monologues about her big pitch to a new client. Something about a tech brand and influencer outreach. She tossed her hair like it was a movie scene. "So," she said, turning to me, "how's the cleaning business?" I took a sip of my water. "It's growing." Dad snorted into his whiskey. "Must be nice not having to think. Just clean and go, simple life." There was a time when that would have broken me. When I would have gone home and cried into a pillow, wondering if I'd made a mistake by staying quiet. But not tonight. Tonight, I smiled and nodded. Simple, yes, but effective. The waiter returned with wine and appetizers, and the conversation shifted toward Olivia's new promotion at her marketing firm and Marcus's move into a bigger house. I listened patiently as they patted themselves on the back, making sure to throw an occasional pitying glance my way. It was almost theatrical. Then Lisa reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. "Did you guys see what's airing tomorrow on the Forbes Sunday Spotlight?" she said, scrolling. Apparently they're doing this huge profile on some self-made billionaire. A woman, too. Former housekeeper of all things. Can you believe that? I nearly choked on my drink. "What's her name?" I asked casually. She tilted the screen. "Mandy Reese." The table fell quiet for a beat. My mother blinked. "Mandy Reese?" "Wait," Marcus said slowly. "Isn't that—" "Same first name. Probably a coincidence," Dad interrupted, waving a hand dismissively. "No way it's our Mandy." Lisa laughed. "Yeah, right. Can you imagine?" She pointed at me, her laughter rising. "From mop to millions. I mean, no offense, sis, but you're not exactly Forbes material." "No offense taken," I said with a small shrug. You never know who's out there building in silence. The irony of it was suffocating. They were sitting across from the woman they were about to watch on national television the very next morning. The woman they dismissed, diminished, and doubted. And they didn't have the faintest clue. The evening dragged on, filled with veiled insults, empty compliments, and overcooked steak. But I endured it all, because tomorrow everything would change. After we sang happy birthday and posed for photos, I stood to leave. Leaving already? Dad asked, cutting his tiramisu with the edge of his fork. Early day tomorrow, I replied. Work never stops. Still cleaning toilets? He smirked. I smiled. Something like that. As I walked to the door, Lisa called after me. Hey, bring gloves next time. You could clean my apartment while you're here. I stopped, turned slightly, and gave her the kind of smile that meant everything and nothing at once. See you tomorrow, I said. They thought I meant brunch, but I meant when their screens lit up with my face, when the world would know who I was, before my own family ever did, and when the Rolls-Royce parked out front would finally make sense. Sunday morning arrived crisp and clear, the sunlight spilling into my penthouse suite high above the city. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, coffee in hand, watching the world move below. Normally, Sundays were quiet for me, restful, but not today. Today was showtime. I turned up the volume on my TV. It was exactly 8:58 a.m. The countdown for the Forbes Sunday Spotlight ticked down in the corner of the screen. I'd seen the final cut of the segment, twice actually, but this time I wanted to watch it live. Not for me, but for them. Because I knew exactly what my family was doing right now. Dragging themselves out of bed, brewing coffee, nursing mild hangovers from the birthday wine, and flipping on the news just in time to see something that would shake them to their core. The intro music swelled. Today we bring you the story of a woman who redefined success, built a billion-dollar company from scratch, and kept it all a secret, even from her own family. Meet Mandy Reese, founder and CEO of Clarity Living. There it was, my name. My full name. Spoken with weight and reverence. I took a breath. On screen, the camera panned across our Manhattan headquarters. Sleek design, glass walls, a logo gleaming like gold. Then a shot of me, walking confidently through the lobby, dressed in a sharp white suit, heels clicking on marble floors. My voice played over the footage. People thought I was just a housekeeper. They didn't know I was building an empire. The segment continued, showcasing testimonials from clients, interviews with my executive team, even footage of the early days. Me scrubbing countertops, organizing storage closets, handprinting flyers. Then came the money shot. A list of cities where Clarity Living now operated. New York, Los Angeles, Miami, Chicago, London, Dubai. 6 continents, over 300 employees, valued at $3.2 billion. I could imagine them now. Dad dropping his coffee mug, Lisa's jaw going slack, Mom gasping loud enough to wake the neighbors. I'd given no warning, no hint, not even a breadcrumb. Then the final scene played. Me stepping out of a black Rolls-Royce, sunglasses on, as a reporter asked, "Why keep it a secret for so long?" I turned to the camera and smiled. Because success doesn't need validation. And sometimes the sweetest part of the journey is watching the ones who doubted you realize they never really knew you at all. Fade to black. I didn't even have to wait 5 minutes. My phone exploded. Calls, texts, emails, voicemails, social media tags. And then the group chat started lighting up. Mom, Mandy, we just saw the news. Is this true? Lisa, wait, what? This is you? Why didn't you tell us? Marcus, holy, Mandy, you're on Forbes. How long has this been going on? Dad, we need to talk. Now I stared at the screen, letting the messages pile up. My coffee had gone cold, but I didn't care. I walked to the garage, phone still buzzing in my hand. My real car, a 2024 Rolls-Royce Ghost, gleamed beneath the overhead lights. I slid into the driver's seat and started the engine. They had questions. Of course they did, but I had answers. And today, they weren't going to hear them over text or in some awkward phone call. They were going to see them, feel them. Because today I was going to visit the same people who had laughed at me just hours ago, this time in a car they used to dream about. Wearing clothes from designers they couldn't pronounce. And walking in not as their family embarrassment, but as the very woman the entire world was suddenly talking about. As I drove through the suburbs toward my parents' house, I thought about the years I'd spent holding back. Every family dinner, every smug comment, every time I bit my tongue instead of revealing the truth. I didn't regret the silence. The anonymity gave me clarity, space to grow. But now? Now it was time to speak with presence. I turned onto their street. The same tree-lined cul-de-sac I once left behind with a duffel bag and no plan. Kids played in front yards, neighbors watered lawns. I imagined the chatter that would spread once they saw the Rolls-Royce pull up. I parked in front of the house, took a breath, and stepped out into the sunlight. Mom opened the front door before I reached the steps. She looked pale, shocked, mascara slightly smudged. "Mandy," she whispered, "is it all true?" I smiled gently and held up my phone, where the Forbes article headline still glowed. "You tell me." The air inside the house felt heavier than usual, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Mom backed away as I stepped into the foyer, her eyes scanning me like she was trying to make sense of what she was seeing. I could tell she hadn't slept. Her blouse was wrinkled, her hair hastily pinned back, and her voice trembled as she asked, "Why didn't you tell us, Mandy?" Before I could answer, Dad appeared in the hallway. His eyes locked on mine, and for the first time in my life, he looked unsure of what to say. "Mandy," he started, "what the hell is going on?" I walked past them both and made my way into the living room, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor. I sat down on the same couch where I'd once curled up as a teenager, grounded for refusing to change my major. The same couch where Dad told me I'd wasted my life when I turned down a receptionist job at his friend's insurance firm. Now, I was worth more than his entire network of colleagues combined. Mom and Dad followed me in. Dad stayed standing, arms crossed, posture stiff. Mom sank into the armchair like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. Lisa and Marcus arrived 15 minutes later, clearly after reading all the messages in the family group chat. Lisa looked flustered, her designer purse swinging from her arm like a prop she wasn't sure how to use anymore. "Mandy," she said, breathless, "this whole time, you've been, living a double life?" Marcus sat down across from me and blinked. "I Googled you. Mandy Reese. It's all real. You're Clarity Living." I nodded calmly. "Yes, I am." But you let us think you were struggling," Lisa said. "You let us believe you were broke." "No," I corrected her. "You chose to believe it. I never told you I was broke. I just didn't correct you when you assumed I was." "You drove that beat-up car," Dad snapped. "You wore thrift store clothes. You asked us to go easy on your birthday gifts. What were we supposed to think? That maybe I didn't care about appearances?" I offered. "That I didn't need validation through labels and luxury to know my worth?" Lisa scoffed. "That's rich, coming from someone who just rolled up in a Rolls-Royce." I leaned forward. "The car wasn't for me. It was for you, so you'd finally see me. Because let's be honest, if I had shown up in my work clothes from the company I own, or said I was investing in real estate across 3 countries, you wouldn't have believed me." Dad opened his mouth, but for once, nothing came out. "You know what really hurt?" I said quietly, eyes still on him. "It wasn't the assumptions. It was how easy it was for all of you to believe I had failed. How none of you ever asked what I was passionate about, what I was building. It was easier to mock the housekeeper than imagine I had dreams worth following." Silence. Then Marcus said, "But why keep it a secret? Why not tell us? We're your family." I turned to him slowly. "Remember when Grandma got sick? I dropped out of school to take care of her. You all told me it was irresponsible, that I was throwing away my future. But I didn't care. I owed her everything. She believed in me when no one else did. And when she passed, I had nothing. Not one of you offered help. Not a place to stay. Not even a word of encouragement." Mom flinched, but didn't deny it. So I started working. Cleaning houses. One of my clients saw something in me. She gave me a book and a chance. That chance became an idea. The idea became a company. The company became a global brand. I paused and let the silence stretch. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to fight for your approval. I wanted to build something for myself. And now that I have, now that the world knows, I wanted you to see it, not hear about it. See it. Lisa shifted in her seat. I thought you were just trying to find yourself. I found myself a long time ago, I said. You just never looked close enough to notice. Dad finally sat down, looking strangely small. So what now? You just rub it in our faces? No, Dad, I said, my voice steady. I'm not here to humiliate anyone. I'm here because, for once, I want you to really know who I am. And because tonight there's a dinner at the Paramount. Lisa's brows knit. The Paramount? That exclusive place with the 6-month waitlist? I own it now, I said simply. And I've reserved it for us. Private chef, full staff, top floor. We're going to sit around a table again. But this time, the conversation will be different. Mom looked like she might cry. We don't deserve this. I smiled softly. Maybe not. But I didn't do all this to punish you. I did it to prove something. That success doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers, builds, waits, and then it reveals itself. On its own terms. The elevator ride to the top floor of the Paramount was silent. My family stood around me, visibly uncomfortable in the mirrored lift, their reflections looking back at them like versions of themselves they didn't quite recognize. Even Lisa, who usually glowed in any social setting, clutched her purse like a security blanket, her eyes darting around the luxurious interior. She hadn't spoken since we arrived. When the elevator doors slid open, a private host greeted us with a polite smile. Welcome, Ms. Reese. The dining room is ready. We stepped into the space I had redesigned just 2 months ago. Glass walls overlooking the city skyline, a long black marble table glowing under soft pendant lights, a private string quartet playing faintly in the corner. The room was soaked in elegance, but it wasn't about wealth tonight. It was about clarity. They needed to see, without a shadow of a doubt, who I had become. The server gestured for everyone to take a seat. As we settled in, my mother leaned toward me. Mandy, this place is breathtaking. I nodded with a calm smile. It's my favorite view in the city. Reminds me of how far I've come. Dad cleared his throat, eyes roaming the room. This is a lot. It's not about showing off, I replied. It's about showing you what you never saw. The servers moved silently, placing down custom menus printed with each guest's name in gold foil. Beside each one, I had placed a sealed envelope. I waited until the wine had been poured, until the first course, lobster risotto, was served. Then I spoke. Before we eat, I'd like everyone to open the envelope in front of them. They looked at me confused. Then, one by one, they peeled open the paper. Lisa gasped first. Inside her envelope was a simple chart. 2 columns. Lisa's salary and Mandy's daily passive income. The second column dwarfed the first. At the bottom was a polite footnote. This is only from 2 of my 8 revenue streams. Her hands trembled as she folded the paper and put it down. Marcus's envelope held an email from 4 years ago, when I'd quietly reached out to his firm under an alias, offering an investment opportunity into Clarity Living. His reply, filled with corporate jargon, politely rejected the offer, stating, "Home services are not scalable." Below it was a note. That $100,000 opportunity would be worth $17.4 million today. He looked up at me, pale. Mandy, I didn't know it was you. I know, I said. That's why I never took it personally. Mom's envelope contained a list of every time I'd asked her and Dad to believe in me, to support an idea, to attend a gallery showing when I was cleaning to support my art, to co-sign a small loan for startup capital. All declined. Attached was a photo of my first office space. Modest, tiny, and completely self-funded. her eyes filled with tears. Dad's envelope was the thinnest, just a single sheet of paper, a screenshot of the Forbes front page. He stared at it for a long time, his jaw tight. Then he spoke, voice lower than usual. "I was wrong," he said. "I thought I knew everything, but I didn't know my own daughter." I met his eyes. "You saw what you wanted to see, Dad. A girl who didn't follow your rules. So instead of asking why, you assumed I was lost." He nodded slowly, and for the first time in my adult life, my father looked genuinely remorseful. Dinner passed with an unfamiliar quietness. No bragging, no lectures, just reflection. After dessert, chocolate souffle with a raspberry drizzle, I stood and walked to the large screen behind the table. "I want to show you one last thing," I said. The lights dimmed as a presentation began to play. Photos from my journey. Me cleaning homes. Me sleeping on the floor with books stacked around me. The tiny office where Clarity Living was born. My first company retreat. My first Forbes cover. My first apartment with central heat. Each image was matched with a headline. Some from the press, some from old emails and texts from my family. "You're wasting your life. Maybe try a community college next semester. Mandy needs to get real." Then the final frame appeared. A photo of me at age 23, smiling with my grandmother in our old kitchen side by side. Below it, "She believed in me when no one else did." I turned back to them. This wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. I'm not angry anymore. I don't need apologies, but I do need you to stop pretending I was ever less than. No one spoke for a long time. Then my mother stood and walked to me, tears silently streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Not just for not seeing you, but for not looking in the first place." I hugged her tightly. "Thank you. That's all I ever wanted." As the music swelled and the city sparkled behind us, I realized this wasn't just a dinner. It was a reckoning. And maybe the beginning of something new. A week had passed since the dinner at the Paramount, and the world hadn't stopped talking. Articles were still going viral. My inbox was overflowing with partnership requests, offers to write a memoir, podcast invites, investment proposals. I'd been named one of Forbes's most influential women of the year and was now booked for a keynote speech at a global innovation summit. But the spotlight wasn't what kept me awake at night. It was the stillness, the silence after the storm, the strange quiet that follows a lifetime of noise, of proving, of chasing something just to show others you could, and then realizing you've already arrived. I sat on the terrace of my brownstone, the one my family didn't know about. It was simpler than the penthouse. Quieter. Ivy on the walls, an old stone fountain bubbling gently nearby. My dog, a gentle old rescue named Luna, lay curled beside me. She didn't care about net worths or business empires, just that I was home. The phone buzzed beside me. It was a text from Dad. "Saw your TED Talk. You were incredible. Wish I'd listened to you sooner. Proud of you, Mandy. Truly." I stared at the message for a while, unsure how to respond. It didn't erase everything. The years of condescension, the disregard. But it was something. A start. A bridge being built, tentatively, but intentionally. A notification popped up. Forbes interview live in 20 minutes. I glanced at the clock. Just enough time. I walked inside and changed into a simple blouse and jeans. No stylists, no prep team, no designer heels. Just me. Because after everything, I'd finally earned the right to be fully myself, on camera or off. I joined the virtual call and the host greeted me with a grin. "Mandy Reese, thank you for being here." "Happy to," I replied. "We've had a huge response to your story," he continued. "Millions have watched your journey unfold. But one question keeps coming up. What made you keep going when everyone, especially your own family, seemed to doubt you?" I thought for a second, then smiled. "You don't need everyone to believe in you. Just one person. And sometimes that one person has to be you. He nodded. And if you could go back, say something to your younger self in that tiny apartment, cleaning houses, what would you tell her? I felt a lump rise in my throat. I'd tell her that it's okay to feel invisible, that sometimes invisibility is a gift. It lets you build without pressure, grow without judgment, and rise without interference. And when you're ready, when the time is right, you won't need to announce your success. You'll just arrive. And the world will have no choice but to see you. The interview ended, and I sat in the quiet again, letting it all sink in. That afternoon, I drove to the cemetery. I hadn't been in a while. The sun filtered through the trees as I stood in front of my grandmother's grave. I brushed a few fallen leaves off the headstone and placed fresh tulips in the vase beside it, her favorite. "Hi, Grandma," I said softly. "You were right. About everything." I pulled the original flyer for Clarity Living from my purse. The one I printed 10 years ago at a 24-hour copy shop, shaking with doubt and hope in equal measure. I placed it gently against the stone and whispered, "We made it." That night, back in the penthouse, I hosted a small dinner. Not for investors, not for press. Just friends. People who'd believed in me when I had nothing to offer but drive. My first employee. My best friend from college. Evelyn Kane, the woman who gave me the lean startup and saw a spark in the cleaning girl others overlooked. We laughed, shared wine, talked about the future. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had anything to prove. Later, as I looked out over the glittering skyline, my phone buzzed again. A new message in the family group chat. "Mom, next Sunday is our turn. Family dinner's at our place. You don't have to bring anything. Just you. And if it's okay, maybe you could tell us more about what you're building. We want to learn. Finally." I smiled. There was no victory parade, no explosion of confetti. Just quiet understanding. And a slow, steady unraveling of the old story they had written about me. Because I hadn't just changed my life. I had rewritten the narrative. From pathetic housekeeper to self-made mogul. From invisible daughter to unignorable force. And maybe, just maybe, the most powerful kind of revenge is simply becoming everything they said you couldn't be. After 15 years at Dalton and Brooks Financial, I had stopped counting the number of early mornings and late nights. I poured everything into this company. Mentoring, overtime, fixing other people's mistakes, staying loyal even when budgets tightened. Yet, as I sat in the sleek, glass-walled conference room on a chilly Friday morning, none of that seemed to matter. Across the table sat Amanda Price, the freshly appointed CEO, barely in her mid-30s, flanked by Richard, the ever-aloof HR manager, and Kevin, my direct supervisor, whose smirk betrayed a level of satisfaction that turned my stomach. Amanda's voice was calm but detached, almost rehearsed. "Kathy, thank you for joining us. I'll get straight to the point. As part of our strategic shift, we're restructuring. Unfortunately, your position has been deemed redundant." Redundant. The word echoed in my head like a slap. I knew this company inside and out, from the legacy accounting systems to the quirks of our biggest clients. But I remained composed, folding my hands neatly in my lap. I had learned long ago that showing emotion in these rooms was a losing game. Before I could even respond, Kevin leaned back, crossing his arms. "We're just cleaning house, Kathy. Trimming the dead weight, if you will." Richard flinched but said nothing. Amanda didn't even blink. From the corner of the room, Emma, one of the younger analysts who'd only been with us for 2 years, chimed in softly. "Don't take it personally, Kathy. It's just business." Her voice was awkward, almost apologetic, but the words still stung. I smiled politely, my heart pounding beneath my carefully pressed blazer. "No problem at all," I replied calmly. watching their eyes flicker with surprise. They had expected resistance, maybe even tears, but what they didn't know was that I had been expecting this moment for weeks. 3 weeks ago, I stumbled upon an internal email chain that I was never meant to see. A forwarded thread, carelessly copied to me after hours, detailed Amanda and Kevin's plan to modernize the company by eliminating senior staff under the guise of restructuring. Me included. I had spent the night since then preparing, quietly, strategically. Amanda slid a manila folder toward me. Inside, you'll find the severance terms. We'll need your keycard, laptop, and phone by end of day. Your team will be informed this afternoon. My team. 12 talented people who I had personally hired and mentored. They were like family to me. Many of them still leaned on me for professional and even personal advice. The thought of leaving them behind hurt more than the thought of losing my title. I understand completely, I said, lifting the folder but not opening it. Thank you for the opportunity. Amanda gave a relieved nod, already shifting her attention to the next item on the agenda. Kevin's smug grin widened, and Richard scribbled mechanically in his HR notebook. Only Emma, who avoided my gaze, seemed to register that something wasn't sitting right. As I walked back to my office, I passed by the main conference room where Amanda's hand-picked executives were already preparing for their Monday leadership retreat. Their laughter behind the glass walls rang hollow. I could almost see Kevin boasting about how he finally got rid of me. I entered my office, closed the door, and locked it. Then, I pulled out my personal phone and sent a short, decisive text. It's happening. End of day today. The response came within seconds. Perfect. Ready when you are. Dinner tonight? I exhaled slowly, the tension in my shoulders loosening. Tonight I would meet someone who had been patiently waiting for this moment. Someone who valued what Amanda, Kevin, and the rest had underestimated. I glanced at the calendar on my desk. It was Friday. I would walk out of Dalton and Brooks today. But on Monday? Monday would be fun. And they had no idea. I arrived at La Maison, an understated yet elegant restaurant on the other side of town, far enough from the corporate district to avoid any curious eyes. The dim lighting, polished wood, and soft jazz spilling from the speakers made it the perfect place for a discreet conversation. Over here, a familiar voice called softly from a corner booth. I smiled as I approached and slid into the seat opposite Jonathan Pierce, the CEO of Silvercrest Capital, Dalton and Brooks' fiercest competitor and a man I had quietly maintained a professional relationship with for years. He rose slightly as I sat, ever the gentleman, before settling back down and signaling the waiter. They finally did it, huh? Jonathan said as he poured me a glass of wine. They did, I replied. Exactly as we expected. His eyes glinted with satisfaction. Kevin's arrogance always was his weakness. And Amanda, well, I suspected she'd make this move the minute she stepped into Victor's shoes. Victor had been the previous CEO and, for all his flaws, had always recognized my contributions. His sudden retirement 6 months ago had marked the beginning of Amanda's rapid ascent and the slow, calculated marginalization of the senior staff. I had survived for a while, but I could see the writing on the wall. I didn't want to believe they'd go through with it, I admitted, swirling the wine in my glass. But when I found that email chain, I knew there was no saving it. Jonathan leaned forward, lowering his voice. I've already had our legal team review everything. You're in the clear, Kathy. The improvements you've made to the client portfolio system over the last year, those late nights you spent working from home, we have irrefutable proof that you developed those enhancements on your personal time, with your own equipment. I felt the knot in my stomach loosen. They underestimated me, I said quietly. They always have. Jonathan chuckled. They see age and assume complacency. They have no idea that you've been quietly building something better than anything Amanda's leadership team could ever conceive. I retrieved a slim folder from my handbag and slid it across the table. Inside were copies of the updated algorithms, efficiency reports, and the preliminary patent application. All under my name. Over the past year, I had been refining Dalton and Brooks' most important client management software. but I had done it off the clock. At home. On weekends. Every improvement, every innovation was documented, time-stamped, and undeniably mine. Jonathan's eyes scanned the documents, and he let out a slow, appreciative whistle. You've outdone yourself. With this, Silvercrest could outperform them within a quarter. I nodded. That's only part of it. I also have the loyalty of my entire team. They've seen how Amanda and Kevin have treated me, and they won't stick around long once I'm gone. They've already hinted they'd follow me anywhere. Jonathan leaned back, visibly impressed. You're offering me not just a system, but the people who know it inside out. I shrugged modestly. They're good people. They deserve better than what Dalton and Brooks has become. The waiter returned with our meals, but neither of us touched the food immediately. There was too much at stake to focus on anything but the conversation. When can you start? Jonathan asked, cutting to the chase. I'll take the weekend to regroup, I replied, feeling the weight of 15 years lift slightly from my shoulders. But I'm ready. And so is my team. Jonathan grinned. Perfect. Monday, we'll announce your appointment as Silvercrest's new Director of Strategic Innovation. We'll position it carefully, but the message will be clear. I could already imagine the look on Amanda's face when she saw the news. There's one more thing, I said, leaning forward. I've already drafted a series of transition documents. I'm going to leave them behind. Every procedure, every password, every project outline. It'll look like I'm leaving out of courtesy. But without me and without my team, they'll realize just how much I kept together. Jonathan's eyebrows rose. Poetic. Strategic, I corrected. I don't want revenge. I want recognition. And I want my people to be protected. As we clinked glasses to seal the plan, I felt a surge of calm confidence. The wheels were already in motion. Amanda, Kevin, and the others thought Friday marked the end of my story. They had no idea it was only the beginning. The office felt different when I walked in on Monday morning, though nothing had physically changed. The familiar hum of printers, the soft tapping of keyboards, and the low murmur of conversations all carried on as usual. Yet beneath it all, I could sense the quiet undercurrent of gossip. News of my departure had already circulated. I passed a few coworkers in the hallway who offered sympathetic smiles or quick glances before returning to their screens. Emma, the young analyst from Friday's meeting, hovered near the break room, looking as though she wanted to say something but couldn't summon the courage. I gave her a gentle nod before making my way to my office, where the box I'd started packing on Friday sat on my desk. Framed family photos, awards, and little trinkets from conferences over the years all stared back at me, reminders of how much time I had invested here. But what struck me most was the silence. None of the executives came by. Kevin didn't even have the decency to check in. For all their bravado on Friday, they couldn't even be bothered to see me off. I spent the morning meticulously organizing every project I had touched, not because they deserved it, but because I knew what I was doing. Every file, every process, every password was documented down to the smallest detail. A gift, wrapped with a bow, that would still leave them hopelessly lost without the context only I and my team fully understood. By noon, the awkwardness around the office had reached a peak. My team, every single one of them, stopped by my office one by one, pretending to bring me files or ask procedural questions. But I knew better. They wanted to say goodbye. And more importantly, they wanted to know if there was more to the story. Miguel, my most trusted developer, closed the door softly behind him. Is it true? You're just leaving? After everything? I smiled gently. Not exactly. He raised a brow, clearly hoping for more. Check your personal email tonight, I said, standing to shake his hand. Trust me. He hesitated, then nodded. We'll miss you. All of us. They'll try to keep things afloat, but without you? He trailed off, shaking his head. It won't be the same. That's their problem now, I replied with a wink. Later that afternoon, Richard from HR arrived, clipboard in hand. He conducted my exit interview like a man desperate to be anywhere else. He rattled off policy after policy, sliding a non-disclosure agreement toward me like it was just another sheet of paper. You understand that all work created during your employment remains the property of Dalton and Brooks? He recited flatly. I signed, emphasizing every word. Of course. Anything I created during my employment with company resources belongs to Dalton and Brooks. I said it slowly, letting the qualifiers hang in the air. Richard didn't catch it. Too busy checking boxes. And you affirm you have no copies of proprietary information? He asked. I've taken nothing that belongs to the company, I said, truthfully. With that, the formalities were over. I packed the last of my things, sealing the box with tape. As I stood in the doorway one final time, I looked around my office, lingering on the empty chair where so many teammates had once sought advice, comfort, or guidance. Leaving so soon? Kevin's voice came from behind me. I turned to find him leaning against the doorframe with a forced casualness. His tie was loose and he radiated smugness. Well, he continued, don't let the door hit you on the way out. You had a good run, Kathy, but this place needs fresh blood. No hard feelings. He gave a little shrug as if dismissing a waitress. I smiled politely, keeping my expression unreadable. No hard feelings at all. You'll probably enjoy retirement, Kevin added. Maybe take up gardening or something. I kept my eyes on him. Oh, I'm not retiring, I said softly. I've already lined something up. Starts Monday. Kevin blinked, caught off guard. Oh? A leadership position, I added, stepping past him into the hallway. Something I'm quite excited about. He chuckled awkwardly, but I didn't stay to listen. I walked straight out of the building, box in hand, leaving behind 15 years of memories, late nights, and, most importantly, the people who had underestimated me. I wasn't just walking away from Dalton and Brooks. I was walking towards something far more rewarding. And Monday? Oh, Monday was going to be very interesting. I woke up earlier than usual on Monday. There was no rush, no commute to the office where I'd spent the better part of my adult life. Instead, I stood in front of my bedroom window, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise cast a soft glow over the city. I had always been the kind of person who believed in hard work and loyalty, but this morning I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. By 8 a.m., the news had gone live. I refreshed the Silvercrest Capital website, and there it was, bold and impossible to ignore. Silvercrest Capital announces Kathy Bennett as Director of Strategic Innovation, exclusive rights secured for revolutionary client portfolio system. It wasn't just a new job title. It was a public claim of ownership over the very system Dalton and Brooks depended on. The press release explained how I had developed the updated system independently, away from company time and resources. It outlined Silvercrest's plans to roll out the technology, leapfrogging competitors. I knew Amanda, Kevin, and Richard were reading the same release right now. In fact, I was sure of it because moments later, my phone buzzed. 9:12 a.m. Emma. Kathy, what is going on? There's chaos here. I smiled to myself. 9:17 a.m. Miguel. They just called an emergency executive meeting. Amanda looks like she's seen a ghost. I replied simply, check your personal email before setting my phone aside. Over the weekend, I had sent private offers to my entire team. Every developer, analyst, and coordinator who had stood by me, undervalued and ignored for years. Silvercrest had prepared senior roles with higher pay, better benefits, and, most importantly, real recognition. By 10 a.m., the news had spread like wildfire through the financial sector. Industry blogs were already dubbing it the Bennett coup. LinkedIn was buzzing with posts about the sudden shift. Dalton and Brooks clients were starting to panic, and so was Dalton and Brooks. At 10:30 a.m., a number I knew well flashed across my phone. Amanda. I answered, keeping my voice calm. Hello, Amanda. Kathy? Amanda said, her voice tight but controlled. I think there's been a misunderstanding. We need to discuss the intellectual property you took with you. I couldn't help but chuckle softly. Amanda, I took nothing that belongs to Dalton and Brooks. What I developed on my own time with my own resources is mine. You'll find it spelled out very clearly in the employment agreement. Section 14, if I recall. There was a pause. Let's be reasonable. She tried again. We're willing to negotiate. Can you come in this afternoon to talk? Oh, Amanda, I said sweetly. I'm booked solid this week, but I'm sure our legal teams will have plenty to discuss. I ended the call before she could respond. 10:45 a.m. Miguel, it's pandemonium. Kevin's screaming at IT to pull every server. Amanda's locked in her office. Half the team's asking me if they should start job hunting. I sent him a short reply. They won't have to look far. Before noon, I had already received acceptance confirmations from nearly everyone on my old team. Even Emma, who had seemed hesitant before, wrote back saying, "If you'll have me, I'd be honored." Silvercrest's legal team was already fielding licensing inquiries from Dalton and Brooks' biggest clients. They could either pay handsomely to license the system or try to rebuild from scratch, which I knew would take years and millions of dollars they couldn't afford to lose. By lunchtime, Dalton and Brooks' stock had fallen 6%. Investors don't like uncertainty, and this was the very definition of it. Meanwhile, Silvercrest's shares were trending upward as rumors of upcoming client migrations began to circulate. My phone vibrated again. It was Kevin, of all people. "Kathy," he said, trying and failing to sound composed. "Listen, we need to sit down. We might have been hasty the other day. Maybe we can find a role for you again." I almost laughed. "Kevin, I'm flattered. Truly. But I think you're about to be very busy." "You can't do this," he hissed. "You're burning bridges." "No," I said softly. "I'm just walking across one you didn't even see me building." I ended the call and leaned back in my chair. The emails from my old team kept pouring in, every one of them eager to jump ship. Kevin, Amanda, and Richard thought Friday was the end of the story. But it wasn't the end. It was the start of a very long week for Dalton and Brooks. And the best was yet to come. By Tuesday morning, the cracks in Dalton and Brooks were no longer hidden. They were gaping fractures, visible to anyone who cared to look. Industry blogs were dissecting every detail of the situation. Analysts on morning financial shows speculated about the company's future, and clients were whispering in private calls about shifting their accounts to Silvercrest. I sat in Silvercrest's conference room, sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, surrounded by my new colleagues. But more importantly, my old team. Miguel, Emma, and the others looked more energized than I had seen them in years. "You really pulled it off," Miguel said, shaking his head as we prepared for the first project planning session. "I still can't believe it." "Believe it," I replied. "And let's make sure it was worth it." Jonathan entered the room, giving me a nod. "The fallout is worse than even we expected," he said. 3 of Dalton and Brooks' largest clients have already reached out to negotiate terms with us. They're jumping ship. I nodded, unsurprised. The clients had relied heavily on the system I built. The fear of losing the stability and functionality it provided was enough to push them towards Silvercrest, even if it meant breaking existing contracts. By mid-morning, my phone lit up with a message from an old friend still inside Dalton and Brooks. "David, emergency board meeting called. Kevin's pacing like a caged animal. Amanda hasn't said a word since Monday. Richard looks like he's aged 10 years overnight." I forwarded it to Jonathan, who chuckled. "I almost feel sorry for them." "Almost," I replied. Later that day, Denise, one of Dalton and Brooks' senior clients, scheduled an impromptu lunch meeting with me. Denise and I had worked together for over a decade, and I suspected this wasn't just a friendly catch-up. Over coffee and salads at a quiet restaurant, she got straight to the point. "We've relied on you more than you know," she said. "Amanda's team has no clue how to manage the portfolio system without you, and frankly, we don't trust them anymore." I gave her the reassurance she was looking for. "We'd love to continue working with you. Through Silvercrest." Denise leaned back, visibly relieved. "I'll push it through on our end." When I returned to the Silvercrest office, Jonathan was waiting with a fresh stack of reports. "More clients lining up," he said. "Dalton and Brooks is hemorrhaging." I stared at the list of client names. Many were relationships I had personally nurtured over the years. It wasn't just about taking business from Dalton and Brooks. It was about protecting the people I had built those relationships with, keeping their businesses stable when Amanda and Kevin's incompetence had left them vulnerable. Around 3 p.m., I received another text from David. David. Rumor is Kevin's blaming Amanda. Amanda's blaming Richard. Board is furious. Word is they're discussing leadership changes. I responded only with, expected. By Wednesday morning, Dalton and Brooks' stock had dropped 15%, causing panic among shareholders. Several employees from the company began reaching out to me privately, asking if Silvercrest was hiring beyond just my team. People were desperate to get off the sinking ship. But the real moment came at 11 a.m., when Dalton and Brooks' general counsel, flanked by two of the company's senior executives, called Silvercrest's legal team requesting a formal meeting. They're ready to talk, Jonathan informed me. They know they're cornered. They'll want licensing, I said calmly, but they'll also want it cheap and quiet. Oh, I'm sure, Jonathan grinned, but that's not what they're going to get. Our legal team was ready with carefully prepared terms, an expensive, non-negotiable licensing fee, backdated to cover past use, and a public acknowledgement of my sole authorship of the system. I knew it would sting Amanda and Kevin's pride more than the financial hit, having to admit publicly that the woman they labeled dead weight had built the very foundation of their success. That evening, as I wrapped up my day, Miguel popped into my office. You see the news? He handed me his phone. And there it was. Breaking, Dalton and Brooks Board announces sudden executive shakeup CEO Amanda Price and head of product Kevin Rhodes. Step down effective. Immediately, I took a long breath, letting the reality of it settle over me. After 15 years of loyalty, being discarded like nothing, I had reclaimed not just my dignity, but my value. How does it feel? Miguel asked. Like justice, I replied softly. As the headlines rolled in and congratulatory emails from Silvercrest executives filled my inbox, I couldn't help but reflect on Kevin's words from Friday. Dead weight? Hardly. And this wasn't over yet. 2 weeks later, I stood in the main conference room at Silvercrest, looking out over the city skyline as the final signatures were inked. The licensing deal was official. Dalton and Brooks had accepted the terms, though not without a fight. They had agreed to pay the full licensing fees, retroactive and ongoing, and, more importantly, to publicly acknowledge me as the sole creator of the client portfolio system that had driven their success for nearly a decade. Jonathan entered the room with a wide grin. It's done. Congratulations, Kathy. They've just published the acknowledgement across all their platforms. No way for them to hide it now. I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the past 15 years begin to lift. The statement was brief, but powerful. Dalton and Brooks formally recognizes Kathy Bennett as the sole inventor of the portfolio management system developed during her tenure and is grateful for her contributions to the industry. Grateful. The irony didn't escape me. Only weeks ago, I had been shown the door like a burden. Now, they were publicly singing my praises. More importantly, Silvercrest was thriving. The clients who had followed me and my team had integrated smoothly. Our new version of the system, enhanced by the refinements I had held back after sensing Dalton and Brooks's betrayal, was outperforming every projection. Miguel and Emma knocked on the open door. You might want to see this, Miguel said, holding up his tablet. The headline nearly made me laugh. Dalton and Brooks faces investor revolt, following executive mismanagement board under pressure to explain patent oversight and talent exodus. The vultures are circling, Emma remarked. They'll survive, I said, folding my arms, but not without learning a hard lesson. As we walked into the meeting with the rest of the innovation team, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought me here. I thought about Amanda's dismissiveness, Kevin's smugness, the board's silent complicity. They had seen me as outdated, irrelevant, someone who had overstayed her welcome. But the truth was, they simply didn't understand the value of experience, loyalty, or genuine innovation. After the meeting, I received an unexpected call. It was Denise from Dalton and Brooks's legal team, the same woman who had tried to slide that severance package across the table. "Kathy," she began, her tone subdued. "On behalf of the remaining leadership, I just wanted to personally apologize for how things unfolded. Many of us were against the way you were treated." I could hear the regret in her voice, but I knew it wasn't just about decency. It was about survival. "I appreciate you reaching out," I replied evenly, "but I've moved on. And so has my team." Denise hesitated. "If there's ever a chance to collaborate again in the future." I didn't let her finish. "I think Dalton and Brooks has some internal rebuilding to do first." We ended the call politely, but the message was clear. They had burned a bridge they desperately wished they hadn't. Later that evening, as I walked through the Silvercrest offices, I noticed how different it all felt. Here, people listened when I spoke. My ideas weren't met with dismissive glances or patronizing smiles. My age wasn't seen as a liability, but as proof of experience. My team thrived, their energy palpable, unburdened by the toxic environment we had left behind. As I passed by the development wing, I caught sight of Emma leading a small group, confidently explaining a complex system. Miguel stood by her, nodding in approval. Seeing them shine like this meant more to me than any title ever could. Jonathan found me later by the windows. "You've changed things, you know," he said. "Maybe," I replied, "but it shouldn't have taken this much for people to recognize the value we bring." He nodded. "It's not just this company. People in the industry are talking about it. About you." I glanced out at the city. Let them. Maybe next time someone will think twice before pushing aside the so-called dead weight. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the skyline, I finally allowed myself to feel it. Not revenge, but satisfaction. Not just for myself, but for every overlooked worker who had ever been told they were too old, too quiet, too set in their ways. I didn't just prove Amanda and Kevin wrong. I reminded an entire industry that loyalty, expertise, and integrity aren't liabilities. They're power.